Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Kelly D'Amico and I'm a marketing specialist here at Threat Connect. I'm going to take a few minutes to go over some housekeeping items and then I'll introduce today's speaker. First, I want to let everyone know that your phone lines are muted to keep background noise to a minimum. If you have questions, please ask them by typing into the chat feature on your webinar console. We will answer all questions at the end of the webinar. Second, the webinar is being recorded today. We will be sending out the recording as soon as we have it available. Now we'll introduce today's speaker. Today's speaker is Mike Longnecker. Mike is a security engineer here at Threat Connect. Today, Mike will be reviewing how Threat Connect for MSSPs can give your security program offerings an edge over the competition. Mike will also cover the value of multi-tenancy for cost savings and faster onboarding of customers without compromising security. So that's it for me. Now I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Kelly. Once again, appreciate everyone being able to join us on today's call. And if at any point you have questions, feel free to drop it in the chat, as Kelly mentioned, and we'll be sure to get your questions answered at the end of the presentation. So the items that we're going to cover for today's call, and I guess before I get too far into it, Kelly, can you confirm that I'm actually screen sharing at this time?
Yep, looks great.
Excellent, thank you. So the topics that we're going to cover is being able to use threat intelligence for our security processes, being able to take actions faster using our orchestration feature, better known as Playbooks, using dashboards for transparency on the information being provided within our intelligence sources, and how we can scale out to provide better service offerings, not only for you, but for your customers as well. So one of the key things that we really like to discuss is the fact of being able to combine threat intelligence in terms of when you're using it for orchestration. And the reason for that really is because of the fact that you can take action without intelligence and be able to effectively say an IP was observed internally, we didn't know about it, that now we've blocked any access to or from that particular IP. And that's definitely a good step in the right direction. But what we're really still missing is the fact that what is that IP doing? You know, how did they, first of all, gain access within our environment or your customer environment? So you're really missing the whole picture, or what exactly was used to compromise that system. So being able to take a look at the threat intelligence that you're ingesting and getting an understanding of what a threat actor or an indicator is using to target its victims and compromise those systems. You're able to use that information and combine it with the acts that you would want to take to effectively mitigate the risk and hopefully reduce any further action being taken, not only by that particular threat actor or any associated indicators or groups. So when we combine that threat intelligence with orchestration, it really empowers us to be able to alert, block, and be able to quarantine systems based upon those two items really working together. So being able to say from a SIEM's perspective, we've got this corresponding IP address that triggered an alert. We now see what type of compromised or exploits that it's using and be able to decide how we're going to respond to that. Having those two items, threat intelligence and orchestration, working together really helps us be able to really go after the issue or the compromised system and be able to mitigate any type of further action or systems, other additional systems being compromised. Getting that context to go along with the intelligence, whether we're talking about services that Threat Connect is providing or third-party services, getting that additional information from those systems to really be able to paint the whole picture for us, to really decide what do we need to do to either prevent a certain type of action being taken, or what do we need to do to plug up the holes and prevent any future attacks being taken against us. When we're using intelligence and additional enrichment, it allows us to be able to increase the accuracy and effectiveness in how we're responding to particular threats or indicators. So as you fine-tune your process, you might prefer other intelligence sources over others. So only look at the information that you really want to leverage and be able to effectively decide how you want to respond to any type of a threat or prevent anything from happening in the future. And as you continue to use this, you're going to speed up your processes and be able to take better or quicker actions, whether it be doing that analysis or being able to orchestrate the actions that you would want to take. And because in the world of threat intelligence or even information security tactics or the methods in which those threat actors are compromising systems, they're always going to change their processes or look for those new zero-day vulnerabilities. So as those come up, our platform is flexible and allows you to be able to change those type of new tactics being used and to be able to prevent or mitigate the risk of any future systems being compromised. So when we're looking at additional context, aside from the intelligence sources that we're using, Threat Connect provides two programs to, again, help us get that entire picture. The first one being Threat Assess. So if we're looking at the screenshot here, Threat Assess being up at the top is giving us a score based upon the intelligence that we're receiving for a particular indicator. So the higher the number, the greater potential risk there is to not only us, but for our customer environment. And we can use this as a metric to decide, based upon this score, maybe we need to look at something else that is, coming in the 800s or 900s because it potentially poses a greater risk to us. To complement Threat Assess, we have our collective analytics layer, which is also known as CAL. So CAL is another program provided by Threat Connect that is anonymized, crowdsourced intelligence about threats and indicators observed or documented within Threat Connect. So if we look at the bottom half of our screenshot, Cal Insights is giving us this anonymized information from our customers that are participating in the program. So think of yourself as an analyst getting this information in front of you. And for example, if you saw a particular indicator was documented as a false positive 100 times in the last 7 days, that would probably get you to think that this particular indicator might not be as great of a risk as we thought, or it could not even be a risk at all because of the fact that there have been so many false positives reported. On the other hand, if you've had impressions, so impressions are going to be things that people are using to look up or view the particular indicator. So if you've had an influx of people looking at or searching for a particular indicator, your analyst could then say, well, you know what, a lot of people are looking for this particular indicator. This could be something that we would really want to focus on and decide how we want to patch a hole or make sure that we aren't compromised. Observations, so these are going to be things that are documented from, say, a SIM. So if your SIM is reporting observations back into Threat Connect, we can then have that tracked. And we can see again that if in the last 7 days we're seeing a ton of observations, again, that we can have with a more greater confidence that this is something that we really want to investigate. So in conjunction with Threat Assess, Cal is really going to help you with your customers' needs as far as determining what's really relevant for you to research and be able to decide on a priority, what do we need to respond to first? What seems to be more of a false positive? And what are the things that we really need to look for when we're doing any type of a research, whether it be something for just a general hunt, hide or a search and find for any type of new intelligence, or if we have something that is a zero-day breach. We want to be able to save time either way. One is obviously going to have a higher priority, but we still want to have a time savings benefit because in the world of IT, we are always having more and more responsibilities on our plate. So if we can have something that saves us some time, this is a great benefit for us to provide. Aside from Threat Connect providing our own programs for additional context, we're also able to integrate third-party tools to get that additional enrichment. And we use our Spaces app in order to pull in those services. So what we're looking at here is integrations with VirusTotal, Recorded Future, and domain tools. Now, it's quite possible that you have one or all of these services available to you, and you're going to their website to pull up their information and be able to get that deeper analysis or additional context when you're doing some form of research. And that's great. But if you get in the habit of getting all of your intelligence into one platform, again, that's going to be a time-saving benefit. And you're not having to pull up another 4 or 5 tabs to do that research. So for example, if we wanted to look up a particular IP address in VirusTool, if I pull up another tab and try to log in, it's always going to be that time when you really need it that things aren't going to work well. For example, you might have changed your password, or maybe your password manager didn't save your new password. So now you're waiting on a password reset email to be sent to you. Well, now your email spam filter has captured that message, and now you're not able to reset your password. Obviously, these things may happen all at once, or there could be other scenarios that could slow down that process. And it's always going to happen at the worst time when you really need that information. So with each one of these services, they have an API or a token that we can use to authenticate to their system, retrieve the additional enrichment that we're looking for, and have it right into Threat Connect, so that, again, you're not having to log in, you're not having to pull up multiple browsers to get the same information. Get it in the place where you're already doing your research, right in our platform. And this is very much going to be a time-saving benefit. You've got your single pane of glass, and what other cliche that you would like to use at this point, to be able to say that when you have all of your information in one place, it's a time-saving benefit, and it'll help us speed up the process on what we are going to do if we want to take any type of action. Now we've got all of our intelligence and our enrichment bundled into Threat Connect. As an MSSP, we might want to share that information with our customers, and Communities gives us that capability. So Communities, it gives us the ability to share and collaborate with customers, whether it be if we want to build a community just for one customer, or maybe we want to build a community for all of our customers, or we can build it out based upon an industry or region in which they operate. We can have that collaborative effort right within Threat Connect. Now, when it comes to information sharing, we want all the information that we can get, but maybe we don't want to be attributed to it. So maybe your customers don't want to participate. Well, when we set up a community, we give you the ability to set up an anonymous profile, so that as your customers participate in the community, if they get creative with their username, no one will know who they are, where they work, or what industry they operate. This allows them to share and collaborate information in the community in an anonymous fashion. Now, when we talk about threat intelligence, there are some companies that are going to be more mature than others. So we have permissions enabled so that in a community, you can empower your customers to collaborate or even contribute information into the community. So for those that have a real good grasp on threat intelligence, they're publishing their own information, or you believe that they have good information to share, give them the ability to publish that information in the community. Now, if you have a customer that is fairly new in the world of threat intelligence, no problem. They can still ingest that information, but maybe we don't want to give them publish rights into the community. So put them in a read-only permission level, so that they can still ingest the information, but they are not able to publish any information until we feel that they are in a more mature level in the world of threat intelligence. So we've talked about aggregating information. We've talked about getting additional context, whether it be within Threat Connect or pulling in other enrichment services. Now we want to be able to take that intelligence and leverage it for being able to take action within Playbooks, which is going to be our orchestration piece of our platform. So right now what we're looking at is the anatomy of a playbook. And Playbooks is very much a drag and drop solution. There's no programming involved. I like to refer to it as a logic-based process. So being able to say, this is the type of action I want to take based upon the criteria that I have set in place. Now, in order to start a playbook, we have triggers. And triggers is going to be this green cell that we see on the screen. So triggers are going to look for that criteria to be met before the playbook is started. Triggers can be anything from a mailbox, a button that you press within Threat Connect, or it could be monitoring for a particular tag that is set on an indicator or a threat actor. Once that criteria is met, then the playbook is executed and the following steps are taken. So for this example, we are taking a look at a campaign and retrieving information from that campaign so that we can deploy it to a firewall. Now, once we grab all of the indicators that are associated to a campaign, we're going to connect to a Palo Alto firewall. With that firewall, we're going to authenticate using credentials that are all provided within Threat Connect. And those credentials can be stored as variables, stored securely so that those credentials aren't exposed, but they can be referenced at any point in time. And furthermore, if you're using those credentials in more than one playbook, you can easily reference them with a variable and update the credentials as they change. So no more worrying about static assigning credentials within a module. Use an organization variable to store that information so that as the information changes, all of your playbooks are updated automatically. So after you've authenticated to your firewall, it has grabbed the associated indicators from that campaign and is now going to deploy that to your firewall block list. Now, after that firewall has updated that block list, we can do a couple different things here. When we're taking a look along the blue path, which might be referred to as the positive path or success path, we can take different types of actions versus something that might be following the orange path, which can be known as the fail path or negative path. For the blue path, what we've done with some of our integrations is being able to communicate into a Slack message that the IPs or the associated indicators were added successfully to the Palo Alto block list. We can also have that some form of communication added to the campaign in the form of an attribute. So an attribute in Threat Connect terms is going to be something that is providing additional context for an indicator or group, but it doesn't necessarily map to our data model. So it's something that's still going to be valuable information, but it isn't considered an indicator or group, but we can add it as an attribute. We can also take it a step further because if we're blocking this at a firewall, we might want to have this updating in a reference set list into our SIM. So empower your SIMs to get threat intelligence as well. So we want to deploy that known indicator into a SIM. Now, it is quite possible that the execution doesn't always work. So for example, if the credentials to your firewall changed, we don't want to assume that this playbook is always working. So if the credentials change, this will follow the fail path here, in which we can email, say, our firewall admins that we weren't able to establish a connection into the firewall. Or again, we can communicate that into a Slack message. We can create a ticket into another ticketing service if we like. Those types of things can be communicated. So as we start to become familiar with playbooks, my recommendation is always to make sure that when we have an execution that we want to take, make sure that we're capturing both a success and a fail path to make sure that the playbook is working successfully, and that also if there's any failures that we're capturing that information as well. Okay. So when we start to use playbooks from an MSSP perspective, here are some of the sample use cases that we've seen from MSSPs, either current customers or those that request a demo, and what they're looking for. Can playbooks or can Threat Connect do this for us? So again, being able to get enrichment data through or send it to chat tools such as Slack or just a good old-fashioned email or ticketing service, we can communicate that information out from Threat Connect into another platform or service. Being able to query for additional information on information that's either for internal data or for other systems that might have reported something. Being able to do DNS blocking to, again, prevent any type of further action or being proactive in making sure that we are not compromised. Disabling those user accounts if we feel that they've been used in a malicious manner. Escalate to other platforms or services if we have some form of communication or breach observed within our customer environment. Being able to look at any type of phishing actions or anything that was taken against our customers. And being able, again, to communicate that information out to our IR or SOC team. Obviously, there's going to be other use cases, but these are some of the more common ones that we see coming from our MSSP customers or those requesting a demo of our platform. Now, when we take a look at orchestration, a lot of the benefit there is being able to take those actions that are normally done by one or maybe a few different individuals And we're able to calculate based upon those actions how much time can be saved by using Playbooks. So when we're taking a look at from an MSSP perspective, and our customer just doesn't have the budget to bring in a network analyst or a security analyst, and we're providing those services to them, we can calculate using our Playbook ROI calculator and saying, look, customer alpha, because of the actions that we're taking on your behalf, we've executed these steps within your environment X amount of times, and if you assume an hourly rate for 1 or 2 analysts, these are the type of savings that we're providing to you so that you do not have to bring in or worry about trying to budget another analyst for your environment. So being able to show and display those cost savings to your customers is something that our MSSPs have really liked, being able to show that type of savings to their customers. Now, when we look at reporting or monitoring intelligence, we can certainly search and find that. We can browse for that information, but dashboards really gives us the ability to oversee the information that we're looking for. So for example, if we're really looking for information that's about a form of malware that compromised one of our customer systems, we can build out a dashboard similar to what we're seeing here so that as new information comes in, we have a dashboard that's going to display that information for us. And our dashboards are also interactive so that if we see information that we like, we can simply click on it and get additional context behind it or see the associated information based upon the intelligence provided by that dashboard. As a customer of Threat Connect, we do provide a couple of example dashboards for you to get started. And we also have a tutorial on how to build out dashboards from our knowledge base site found at kb.threatconnect.com. Some others that we've also had build out are a PIR dashboard or something that's going to be on, say, for task management. If you're using Threat Connect to task or assign people for key projects, you can have a dashboard assigned to monitoring task status for all of your employees or your analysts to see where they're at. And that gives you better oversight on who's behind, or maybe someone who needs help. Someone was on leave, so maybe we need to help that person out with their tasks. Or if we're wanting to look at anything that's impacting a particular industry or region, because that's very possible. So if we want to keep an eye on any type of intelligence that has impacted an industry in which we have a lot of customers, we can keep an eye on that information using dashboards. All right, so we've talked about being able to help out our customers, whether it's publishing information or taking action using Playbooks or orchestration. Now, sometimes we're going to need to take that action internal into their environment, which means we're going to have to cross the internet and to be able to take that type of action. Now, with the current process, you might have a VPN set up, or you might have to set up a new VPN. You might need to go through a proxy, or you might have to work directly with someone in order to execute those types of steps. And when we're trying to bring in new connectivity methods, you're going to have to, it's going to be more cost to you in order to support one or more VPN technologies. You're probably going to have to bring in at least another person just to oversee those types of technologies. And just by default, by bringing in new technology, you open yourself to more vulnerabilities to your infrastructure. So to simplify that communication between your instance of Threat Connect and your customer environment, we have our multi-environment orchestration server, or MEO server. So what the MEO server is think of it as an agent that's very lightweight and is a virtualized system that is deployed within your customer's internal environment. It communicates over port 443, and it allows you to execute steps within your customer environment. So when you have something that you need to, say, go in and block something at a firewall, well, you need to be able to communicate with the environment server, send those communication or those actions to the environment server that is now deployed in your customer environment, and to be able to add those indicators to your customer's block list. Again, communicates over port 443. The environment server listens or communicates outbound on port 62,000, and is then establishing connection with your instance of Threat Connect. So anytime a new execution step or a scheduled process needs to run internal to your customer's environment, that agent is collecting that information and executing it internally into your customer environment. Going along with playbook execution, we also have introduced playbook servers. So this allows us to establish a server and a group of workers to execute playbook steps within your customer environments. Now, when we start to execute playbook actions, it's possible that some playbooks are going to take longer to execute than others. And that allows us to use other playbook workers to use those other playbook workers in order to execute those other playbooks that are waiting behind or in queue to be executed. You can also deploy additional playbook servers so that if you do have those playbooks that take an extended period of time to execute and is causing a backlog, you can dedicate one playbook server to a particular playbook so that that playbook has its own server and worker, and all other playbooks will no longer be backlogged. They have other servers and workers they can use, which can then alleviate the backlog that you might see when executing multiple or simultaneous playbooks at the same time. So this is the conclusion of our presentation. If you'd like to learn more about our security orchestration, automation, or intelligence-driven response, feel free to click on the link available here, where you can download our free SOAR ebook and learn more information about the platform and the products and services that we've discussed just during today's presentation. Thanks again for everyone joining. At this point, we'll turn it over to any questions that might have come during today's webinar.
Thank you, Mike. One second here. So one question we had come in, is your threat intelligence feed included in the cost of the platform, or is that an additional cost?
So as a customer of Threat Connect, we provide our own threat intelligence source. We also provide approximately 50 open source intelligence feeds that are vetted by our research team, who is also responsible for managing and curating the intelligence we provide from our own intelligence source. And we also aggregate roughly 130 different information technology websites that are publishing information about threat intelligence. So that is, all of that is included in the pricing of the platform. That is not an additional cost.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so it looks like that is all the time we have for today, and we do appreciate the questions coming through. We will be posting the recording on YouTube and sending out tomorrow. I do want to thank everyone for joining us today. I want to thank Mike for presenting. If you have any additional questions or would like to speak to our member of our team, please see the contact information on your screen. With that, I say thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.